Good evening, good afternoon, and good night to everyone in SFL Nation. I am Andy Hamilton, and we are back live on the air for the SFL Podcast. Week 11 of SFL action, so we're getting real close here to being in the playoff area. And so a lot of pivotal games, a lot of important games, and we're going to discuss all of the action from last week as well as look ahead to this week a little bit. And maybe take a little peek at the playoffs. Who knows? I'm joined, as always, by my partner in crime, Mighty RX. Max, how you doing?
I am good, Andy. Sorry I missed y'all, so we can't really say always, more like most of the time. Yes, it's been a very eventful 2 weeks. I took some time off for my wife and I to celebrate our 20th year together. So at this point now, we've been together longer than we've been apart. I don't know if that's good or bad. The lady has the patience of a saint. And then last week I couldn't join because we kind of had to prep for a ridiculous storm of our own. Funny playing words. And Irma, which kind of was it didn't hit us as bad as it kind of hit the Keys and the west coast of Florida. So so keep praying for the people in Houston because they had to deal with a storm of their own. Hey, Frank, pretty boy Frank. Keep him in there because I don't know if he got his power back. I just got my power back yesterday, late afternoon. So just no more hurricanes. Like hurricanes aren't good. They're not pleasant. They're not friendly. I don't know why they keep naming them. Don't put them names. Give them names of monsters like Irma. Irma sounds too nice. Sounds like your grandma. You know what I'm saying? Now you know what I'm saying. It needs like Rumpelstiltskin. Be afraid of that one. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling on. I digress.
Yeah, Ray Bentley. Here comes Hurricane Bentley.
There you go,
Ray Bentley.
Hurricane Bentley. Oh my goodness. Yes, I agree.
Move everything. Yeah, we'll obviously we'll get to the Western Conference. But yeah, good to have you back. Glad to hear everything's kind of going in the positive direction for you guys. But yeah, as always, keep everyone thoughts, prayers, and we'll keep going from there. Mighty, I know you were only able to see limited action, and we might have more people jumping in as Mahmoud Ajalani just got in here with us. So we'll rely on a couple of the games you did get to catch, as well as I'll talk about the games you missed. So we'll jump right into it here. We'll start at the top of the pile. Chicago heading to Carolina as Shan returns to Raleigh to take on the Skyhawks, which he formerly coached to the playoffs last season, and is able to get the job done, 26-21. Carolina had more yardage than Chicago, 304 yards through the air, 51 on the ground. Chicago had 278 yards through the air and only 21 on the ground. But the Wildcats are able to pull out a victory. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions for E.T. King. Deion Hawkins, a really rough game, 16 carries, 22 yards. He did help in the passing game, though, was the second leading receiver, for Chicago with 12 receptions, 83 yards. On Carolina's side of the ball, Mark Biddix threw the ball 53 times. English only carried 18 for 37 yards. Biddix had 304 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. As the Carolina Skyhawks showed some grit, but weren't able to get the job done.
Go look upstairs.
My first thoughts, because I am good friends with Shan as well as good friends with James. I used to coach in Carolina as well. Those Skyhawks, I'm very proud of what they did in terms of being eliminated at 1-8, but we're still willing to get out there and try and get that second win. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. You're unable to beat Shan, but you game planned well. The cards just didn't kind of fall in your favor for this one. But I'm real proud of what Carolina was able to do. And this is kind of one of those games where when we talk about a little bit about the playoffs here near the end of the show, you might have to hold this against Chicago heading down the line because this is a team you should be beating, and they seem to have Chicago's number. Mighty, would you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah. Carolina's been kind of in every game for the most part this year, as except for the first Chicago game. They've been right there. They haven't been able to make the play or two necessary to kind of pull out the victories. Which is, I guess for these new-ish coaches that they have, understanding how to fully utilize the roster they've been kind of handed and trusted with. I could understand how it takes them a little while to get kind of their bearing. Especially with the season wrapping up. Um, they like I said, they're there. It's just a thing or two, and that's like the story of their season.
Yeah, no doubt there. Mahmoud, what did you think about the way that Carolina played and the way that Chicago looks? As right now they're in a playoff position, but they could very well fall out of that as we move forward.
Well, Carolina didn't have that great of a season, but Chicago, they've been playing like a top tier team, and that proves that they are, as they're like on the verge of making the playoffs. All they need is a Atlanta win, or they need a win. So they're pretty much looking right in.
Oops, sorry, brother. I was muted. No wonder hadn't been anyone respond to what I was saying. Yeah, so Chicago pulls out that win. Sitting in a playoff spot, you're right, Mahmoud. Atlanta wins or they win, and they're into the playoffs. So good luck to Chicago heading forward. Unfortunately, Carolina is out, but don't stop fighting, as we saw with St. Louis in these past 2 weeks, as well as last season. It goes a long way to win kind of the end games of your season, and that can really lead people to kind of watch out for you heading into next year. Next, Oklahoma City heading to Mexico, south of the border, take on the Aztecs. 24-31, the Aztecs get the win. They score the Renegades in yardage, 405 yards for the Aztecs, 268 of them coming on the ground via Ray Bentley. Matt Wilson threw the ball 22 times, only completing 50% of those, whereas Bentley had 38 carries for 273 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Wilson also threw 2 touchdowns through the air. On the Oklahoma City side, Red Feather, 23 of 30 for 1 touchdown and 2 picks. Brewski, 20 carries, 73 yards. And Caleb Hamby had a pretty good day, though, with 11 receptions, 213 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns for him, as the Renegades are unable to get it done. These guys, but this is a potential playoff matchup between these two teams who are right now trying to fight their way into the playoffs, as Oklahoma City's still in the running. I think it goes a long way to show that Mexico City can beat an Oklahoma City team, that Oklahoma City's trying to make it into the playoffs, whereas we've seen some other teams, play well against Mexico City and come close. Renegades come close as well, but weren't able to get it done. And, in Week 10, you got to be winning those games if you're going to try and make the playoffs, but Oklahoma City still has a chance to get in there. Mighty, what do you think about the way this touches on the Western Conference and how potentially, because if Oklahoma City makes the playoffs, we could see this matchup come back around?
Yeah, Oklahoma City. I got to watch catch a little bit of that before my internet completely, crapped out during the storm. OKC gave Mexico City a fight, man. It's like they were in there. OKC's been riding, I believe, a 2-game winning streak coming into that matchup. It was looking like Papa Irvine was finally, out of the his mid-season swoon that kind of had him, going down a downward spiral. And man, they put up one heck of a fight. And I wouldn't be surprised if OKC's able to, kind of win their last 2 to give themselves a chance to get into the dance. So yeah, I very much like OKC's chances to make noise at least down the stretch. So anybody that got to face them better be ready. This isn't the OKC squad that went 0-4. This looks more like the OKC squad that started out the season hot at 2-0.
Yeah, and they're going to have to, like you said, they're going to have to win games if they're trying to get in at 4-6. They're not technically eliminated, but they're going to need a little bit of help in trying to catch teams like Houston and Vancouver who are in right now. But you got Dallas right there, and then even Sioux Falls still sits at 4-6. So it's still kind of a cluster in the Western Conference, and they're going to have to try and beat out some of those teams to get in there. Mahmoud, what did you think about the way that Oklahoma City played? Because Red Feather had some good yardage. Do you think they needed more out of Brewski on the ground?
Yeah. I think he did okay. I mean, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, but I feel like what kind of stopped them was they lost a turnover battle. So that might have pushed them back. But Pete Bruschi could have done maybe a little bit more, in my opinion, because he already had 73 yards on 20 carries and 2 touchdowns to go with that. So I believe he did his part in the game. Just the turnover battle was lost.
Yep, totally fair on that point. And we saw Mexico City almost protect the ball a little bit in trying to run and kind of utilize Bentley more against a Oklahoma City team that has had some takeaways, has the safeties to kind of do it. So I like that game planning from Ramos and the Mexico City Aztecs to try and take that one away. We'll move on. Sioux Falls went to Canada and took on Vancouver at Canada Field. And Vancouver came out of this one 41-31, adding another win to the win streak. 484 yards for them. Sioux Falls gets close with 471 as they were pretty comparable. The difference was kind of the yardage on the ground. Vancouver was threw for 326 through the air and 158 on the ground. Sioux Falls, 366 through the air, 105 on the ground. Both teams go 55% on third down. Tyree, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. Clancy, 25 carries, 110 yards. On the other side of the ball, Vancouver, Pepper went 20 of 30 for 2 touchdowns and 2 picks. And Yvonne Sanchez, 25 carries, 158 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I think this was one of those games that I was coming into and I was real worried because I know Jason and Sioux Falls have had my number for my entire SFL career. And so I was real worried about that. But then, I was telling Mighty before the show, Sioux Falls has some weapons, man. And with the way that they have played at times during the season, I was worried I was going to get one of those Sioux Falls teams that shows up and balls out. And to their credit, 31 points is really good. So we bested them a little bit just this week, but, I think you sim that game 3 to 4 more times and it could go either way. Mighty, we'll go to you next. What did you think about the way that these two teams played as potentially they're both fighting for some of the same spots to make it into the playoffs?
Well, Sioux Falls started out the game and they were moving the ball a little bit and they just were. Not to take anything away from Vancouver, but Sioux Falls are run and play and it bounce off of receivers' hands and wind up as an interception. And they'd run another play and it gets deflected 19 times and it lands in the lap of a Vancouver player. And it's like they couldn't do anything right before halftime. And Vancouver got that super bend but don't break defense that they're running right now. And it's Tyree kept being, I won't say hard-headed, but more like he tried to force the issue when there were plays to be made in the shorter areas to kind of keep the chains moving and to give himself a chance on later downs, and he wasn't taking advantage of that. And that's what led to Vancouver getting that big halftime lead, and all they had to do for the rest of the game was kind of, weather the little bit of a attack that Sioux Falls, tried to mount towards the end stages of the game. So for Sioux Falls, it's more lean on your horse, man. You got Clancy back there, and give him the rock. Let him be, let him be the stallion that you kind of signed him to be at the beginning of the season, and kind of manage Tyree's pitch count. If you to steal a baseball term, and so that way he takes shots when necessary, as opposed to always looking for the big play, even when the big play is not there to be had. And for the and for the Legion, hey, keep doing what you're doing, man. 6 in a row, you got that secret sauce. You might as well bottle it up and start selling it. You know what I'm saying? That so.
Well, I would if I knew what it was, Mighty. I don't understand. I'm throwing the plays in there. I think that'll work, and it works. And like you were saying, Sioux Falls kind of just got unlucky here at the beginning of the game, and like that's exactly what I was saying. Like it could have gone the other way. If 1 or 2 of those interceptions hadn't have happened. So, hats off to Sioux Falls for a very good game plan. And they're all telling me in the chat next season it'll be different. It very well might be. You really never know when you're playing a team like Sioux Falls. Ramos Lynn has joined us, as well as Shan Varner. Ramos, we're going to go to you first, since the game directly kind of affects the Western Conference. What did you think about the way that the Sioux Falls and Vancouver game panned out?
Well, I was very impressed with Vancouver overall, scoring 41 points. I think that Vancouver right now, man, I'm scared of them. You know, they already beat us bad, really, really bad, and I'm really, really scared of them in the playoffs. So I was impressed by Vancouver. By Sioux Falls, I mean, it's like at some points I thought that they were going to actually do it, and then the mistake happened. And it was like, man, okay. And then again, it happens the same thing. And again, whatever. It was like Sioux Falls was like kind of there, but at the same time, I felt like the Legion had a step. They were a step further every single snap. So I'm impressed by the Legion. Obviously, winning games is very impressive, especially as an expansion team. And yeah, they're a very scary team right now.
Right. The Vancouver, though, still not in the playoffs, which I think is the intriguing part to me as the not only the owner for the team, but a fan as the league overall. You know, it's great to. I was telling Mighty before the podcast, it's great to win 6 games in a row, and to do so. But you know, if you don't make the playoffs, what's the point, right? So I was telling him it just ramps the pressure up with every win, because at some point, you know, you have the feeling that it's going to burst, and you just hope by that point you're either in the playoffs or, you know, maybe in a championship game or something. So got to keep working. Shane, we'll swing it to you next. What did you think about the way that this game played out, and how these two teams are doing this season?
I think that, you know, Vancouver's doing a great job. They're moving the ball at will, if you know, sort of speak. That's why the score was 41. Points there, but what I like about the Legion is they're able to run the ball, and they're able to throw the ball whenever they want to. So with Sioux Falls, I think they're struggling a little bit this year, and so it was really no surprise this outcome.
Okay, fair enough. Mahmoud, we'll send it to you. What did you think about the way that these two teams played in the Western Conference tilt?
Well, the Western Conference is a scary division right now, because there's only one team that's clinched, and there's like 5 teams fighting for the other 3 spots, and anything can happen. So Vancouver is a scary team, like Ramos said, and Sioux Falls also is a great team, but it's at points of the season they don't look like the Sioux Falls they really are. So that's what's kind of holding them back. That's what I think.
Fair all the way around the board. Let's keep it moving. Next, Atlanta took on Queen City, and boy, this was a nail-biter, man. 35-38, the Queen City Corsairs get the win. But this another game that we very well could see, because Atlanta's right there in that 4th spot for now. That Mark Chisholm might be taking notes on. Speaking of which, happy birthday to Mark. If he might listen to this later, but happy birthday to him. But this is a game that Atlanta was taking notes on what they could do against Queen City, because here in 2 weeks' time they could be having a game plan for them again as the playoffs pop up. Atlanta did outgain the Corsairs 488 total yards to 400. They didn't have as many first downs, but they were right there in the game the whole time. 54% on third down is pretty good, despite Queen City, having more of the time of possession. DeMar Woods looked kind of human, though, for Atlanta with 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. BDG Hollywood looked, the opposite of human with 20 carries, 179 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Then when you flip over to the Queen City side, they actually did a pretty solid job of keeping Kyle Walsh to around 4 yards a carry. He only had 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. The touchdowns is really what you want to limit there. And Caswell looked really average, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. the Atlanta defense kind of came out to play and did their job. In the end, it just didn't kind of work out with those extra 3 points. Mahmoud, we'll go to you first because I know you are part of the Atlanta organization. What did you think about the way that this one played out against the Corsairs?
Well, it was another disappointing loss to the Queen City as this one came on a missed field goal. So, I mean, that we most likely will see them in the playoffs. So we have to make sure we're doing what we're doing, but also we had them right where we had them. We had an early 14-0 lead, and we kept building on that lead. But after the half, Queen City came out and just they hit us in the mouth and started putting up points on the board. I think the biggest part for the mistake for us were turnovers, as we had 4, and all 4 were interceptions. If we had less turnovers, I believe we might have won it. Because especially where there was an interception in the end zone with, I believe, 3 minutes left in the game, and that could have changed the whole outcome. We could have won it right there, but the interception just changed it.
Okay, yep, I completely agree with everything you're saying. Mighty, what do you think about the way these two teams played? And do you think we're going to see this matchup again come playoff time?
There's a very strong chance and possibility that yes, we might see this matchup later. But I caught a couple of glimpses of this game, and early on, it looked like Atlanta kind of was applying their will and doing what Atlanta does best. Bunch of big plays, play solid defense. I believe Ludacris had like 3 sacks this game or something like that. So, or was it? No, that was the game last week. But still, they were doing their thing. BDG was what BDG does. Big play run, big running plays here, big running plays there. And then when the fourth quarter came, it seemed like their quarterback kind of lost composure, if I could use that term. And instead of them, playing a little more conservative and, at least having, make Queen City use the entire field to score, they were turning the ball over and some really tough spots for their putting their defense in quandaries that they just couldn't overcome. And they kind of, got outlasted that way. And even at the end, they still had a chance because if everybody remembers, Atlanta missed a kick in the waning minutes that could have set the game to overtime. So, whenever these two, and if nobody can forget the earlier game they had this season when Atlanta had that snafu towards the end where they forgot to use timeouts, clock was running, and the game ran out on them, where they had a chance to kick the field goal to tie the game as well. So, I can't wait for the 3-match, because I want the 3-match to occur. They need to play one more time because I know for a fact Atlanta got a really bitter taste in their mouth. And they want to get, they have a lot on their chest that they like to get off in Queen City's direction. So I would love to see a 3-match happen.
Yeah, I could not imagine the pandemonium and just insane frustration from the Atlanta side if they were to draw Queen City in these playoffs. And excitement for that matter from the league because, you'd be watching a match where Atlanta has had all the time and was a field goal away, like Mighty was saying, from sending them to overtime. That would just be an incredible playoff matchup. Ramos, what did you think about the way that this one played out? And do you think Atlanta has the juice to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I do. Definitely Atlanta will be making the playoffs, and I think that they will be a dangerous team in the playoffs. I was impressed by Queen City's patience, Queen City's kind of like, not giving up. They outscored the Swarm 21-7 in the fourth quarter, which, at the end obviously was a difference in this ball game. So, that's what champions do. That's what the Queen City Corsairs do. They never give up, and you can never say I beat the Corsairs until the clock hits 0. So I was really impressed by the Corsairs right there, but I was also impressed on the Atlanta Swarm. We're speaking about a team who has won what's that, like 8 straight games now in the Corsairs, and the Atlanta Swarm on the road. I mean, they had a good lead. They had a good what was that, like 11-point lead after 3 quarters. So, I was impressed by the Swarm the first 3 quarters, but then Queen City really, really took the game over, and impressed by them. Queen City obviously the favorites to win the championship one more time, which is insane.
Yeah, Queen City has already booked their ticket to the playoffs at 9-1 with, like Ramos was saying, the 8-game win streak. Yeah, Queen City will definitely be back. The only question is, can Atlanta join them? Shan, you've had to play both of these teams, and in a sense, you're one of the biggest Atlanta Swarm fans this weekend. As a win from them would push you into the playoffs, whether you win or lose to Queen City. And to that matter, you play Queen City this week. What did you think about the way these two teams play? I'm sure you've looked over this game probably about 5 or 6 times, if I had to guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Andy. I've watched this game numerous of times. I love the way that Atlanta came out and kind of closed down on Walsh and made Caswell throw the ball. And I think that the difference is, Queen City started off kind of weak, but came back towards the end. And I think that Atlanta just made some poor decisions at the end of the game, not calling the timeout, not getting prepared to kick the field goal. And as time expired again, as you and Ramos had mentioned earlier, and also Monty. But, definitely Atlanta gave me a blueprint of, what I needed to do against Queen City. And, hopefully this coming up week when we play them, that those things fall into place and we're able to come away with the W.
No doubt there as that matchup, both of those matchups with Atlanta and Carolina, as well as Queen City and Chicago, will have, different factors that will weigh on the playoff race heavily. Moving on down the list here, we'll move to St. Louis and Cleveland as the Gladiators have started piecing things together now that you get one win, you start rolling. We saw Vancouver doing the same thing. St. Louis 42-35 over the Cleveland Stallions in a highly offensive contest as Liam Crowder, the new coordinator for the St. Louis Gladiators, has got things going, man. 560 yards from the offense, 346 of which are through the air. That's incredible. A really good day for Ethan Alexander. 2 touchdowns on 346 yards with only 1 pick. Adam Fennell gets going on the ground, 200 yards on 16 carries and 4 touchdowns. Swaim had 2 of his own, and Cleveland just kind of had to play, defense and catch up almost. Mac Wavy Jr., 36 throws, 23 of them hit their target, 456 yards, 4 touchdowns to match 4 picks. Overstreet, 32 carries for only 54 yards, but he did have a touchdown through the air and on the ground. Both of these teams, not necessarily gonna make the playoffs. They're actually both eliminated now after the way that game played out, because Cleveland needed a win. But a good showing for St. Louis as they look towards next year. I think this shows a lot to the build that James Richards put together, and that, it's not necessarily something that you can just count out as something that didn't work this season. More that, it just needed a different scheme in order to, work a little bit better as St. Louis gets the better of Cleveland. Let's swing it to Mighty. Mighty, what did you think about the way that St. Louis offense looks, as well as how they played Cleveland this week?
Ethan Alexander balled out this game, man. Between him and Swaim, Swaim put up Tecmo Bowl numbers. Now, for you young folk, y'all don't know what Tecmo Bowl is. Shan's giggling because you know what Tecmo Bowl was the football game before Madden to kind of took off, and they would start before when people want to play football back in the day. Hey, let's go to so and so house. We're gonna get some Tecmo Bowl on. Well, the Tecmo Bowl, it was 11-on-11, but it was all about big plays, and your receivers wound up with 3 catches for 200 yards, something ridiculous.
Well, you play that on the Nintendo Wii, or I'm not sure what.
Oh no!
Oh my God!
Just Nintendo. That's how far back you gotta go. Just Nintendo. It was just Nintendo.
That's a company. You can't play a game on a company, Mighty. Come on.
That's how far back you go. That's what I'm saying. So, but yeah, that Swain, man, 6 catches, 244 yards. That's comical. That's crazy. But he did it against Cleveland. So, and they outpaced Cleveland. Who outpaces Cleveland? We know they got John Woo at quarterback. Early on, it looked like St. Louis was asserting their will. It'd be a low scoring, and then all of a sudden it just shootout everywhere. OK Corral. It was amazing. It's St. Louis, 2 in a row, looking good. Liam, keep doing what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it because it's working. And this bodes well for them. For next season, they're kind of building their pathway. Now, mind you, we said the same thing last year when they won the last 4. So hopefully they could just keep the gravy train going this season into next season for them. And for Cleveland, playoffs are out of the questions again. But hopefully Matt Wavy learned some things and being the head coach this season that'll help him grow for next season and get himself situated. But hey, they still each have 2 more games left to kind of tinker and try to figure out some more things that do work and kick out the things that don't work. So there's still room and time for growth for both teams. But kudos to St. Louis for making their offense work. And against Ethan Alexander, he looked like a quarterback last week.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of quarterbacks, this is going to be an interesting little tidbit for some of the newer people to the league. This is going to be the first time in 3 seasons that Mac Wavy Jr. is not going to have a chance to make it into the championship game. He actually made the championship game in the last 2 seasons in a row, and this season will not be there because Cleveland has been eliminated. But not a bad season necessarily from him in any respects. Ramos, we'll swing it to you. I know you've had to play Mac Wavy Jr. All over in the past couple years. Talk to me a little bit about the matchup between Cleveland and St. Louis. Ramos, you there?
Yeah, man, I'm sorry.
No,
I was muted. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Alrighty. Okay, I was very impressed with Ethan Alexander, as we all said, as you all said. Elijah Swain put in some Tecmo Bowl numbers, kind of like Randy Moss in Thanksgiving numbers, 6'2", 44, 2 scores. How about also Prince Escobar, 9 catches, 225. I mean, 225. That's like a quarterback. Like what a quarterback throws is not like what a receiver catches. Mike Wavy with 456 Madden numbers right there. And I thought that this was actually going to be like a defensive game. I actually was betting more in a 20-17 kind of ball game, or 19-16, something like that. I was not really expecting for Ethan Alexander to just throw the ball crazy to Elijah Swain. So happy for the St. Louis Gladiators. I think that this is great for their squad for obviously this upcoming season, now that they are unfortunately eliminated. But I think that they can carry this momentum up to next season, and hopefully we see the Gladiators, competing with the Corsairs, with the Crabs and whatnot. So great win by the Gladiators and by the Stallions. I mean, the Stallions are the type of team that they look good, but at the same time, it's like, man, they dropped the game at the end. It's like inconsistency, but I think that the Stallions can be a dangerous team next season as well. So, great team, great game to watch, really. I watched the game again in full after the game was over, and it was kind of crazy. So, good game here.
Yeah, a very good one. Shan, we'll swing it to you. You've played both these teams. What did you think about the way that they matched up?
Yeah, I mean, I think they matched up really well. Cleveland has been known throughout the season here to have a great defense, and now St. Louis in the last 2 weeks have put together an offense that at times could be explosive and at times could just be kind of lingering, just running the time off the clock and trying to get the win after like a low scoring game like Ramos was saying. But last week Ethan Alexander had 21 completions out of 34. That's only 13 passes that was not caught for 192 yards. So, and then turn around in this week and he put some, monster numbers again. So, you can't count the guy out. I mean, he has a huge target with Swaim, and that's just one thing that somebody's got to look out for. We play them. Chicago plays them. Week 12. So those are some of the things that we're going to look for. Both defenses really giving up a lot of points, but if you're Cleveland, they can put points on the board at will. So I think both teams played a great game. Just it happened to be St. Louis's day.
Agreed fully. Mahmoud, if you're still there, do you want to give your thoughts on how this one played out?
Just because St. Louis was eliminated does not mean that they weren't going to play hard. And especially since their opponent was still had a chance to jump into the playoffs, they made sure they played even harder. And they played with their hearts out, and they eventually eliminated them, made it easier for us teams on the top trying to get a spot. The St. Louis, they looked like a different team. Their whole offense produced, which probably was the key to their victory. The defense forcing 4 turnovers. That was another key to success. So they look like a dangerous team. And who knows, maybe they might come back next year even stronger and better.
Yep.
Now, I do have a question about that. Since they do have things going, do you think they may try another build next year, or do you think they just work off the one they've got? At some point, I think that you're going to have a build and stick with it to have success for your team.
I think that the way that Dwayne and Colin run their team, and I love how they do this, they give guys a shot to kind of do what they want, and they work with them and kind of incite their knowledge on the way that you've had some coaches come in there. I would love to see whoever is in that spot next season work with whatever build they feel most comfortable with. If that means keeping the build, then by all means do it. If that means adjusting to something with a little more offense or, a different scheme, do it. But whatever is most comfortable for whoever ends up coaching that team next season, whether it be Liam, whether it be Dwayne or Colin, or whether it be some third party that is outside of the building right now, whoever comes in there and is picking the plays, I think needs to dictate how that build goes. And I don't think any of the owners in the chat right now would disagree with me in saying that the person calling the plays needs to have a decent, grasp on how their team is built.
No, I could agree there, and I agree there. If I could add my 2 cents about that one, they don't necessarily need to rely on the same build to have success. But they do need to go into whatever build they have, understanding its strength, the pros and the cons for that build prior to the build actually coming together. So it's one of those, okay, I want to have, 3-star offensive linemen. Okay, you better know what you're going to do with those 3-star offensive linemen and not be throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks.
Right.
Kind of thing. So.
Yep, 100%. Let's keep it moving in the interest of time. San Antonio in Dallas. The Dallas Roughnecks get the win 27-16, keeping their playoff hopes still alive. Both of these teams end up with 354 yards at the end of the day. Dallas even had 57 yards on the ground as Synergy ran the ball 15 times for 30 yards. A good showing from Dallas to keep themselves alive. Mighty, what did you think about the way that Dallas played, and is this a team that can make the playoffs?
This is one of the games I did not get to watch because I had more like the neighborhood I was in had no power. But about Dallas is the type of team that Steven. It took a minute for Steven to kind of get his bearings under him and figure out the best way to maximize the talent. But we all know that Steven knows defense. I want no part of Dallas. Hopefully someone can knock them out for me. Good looking out, whoever you are. But yes, Dallas is the type of team, if they get in, and with Stephen Mullinax, I mean, last season, they were in the championship game. They were a game away from being called and crowned champions. So there's some pedigree there. I ain't trying to face that kind of pedigree. Andy, if you get in, you can face it if you feel like it. Ramos could tell you he ain't trying to face that kind of pedigree. Yes, Dallas is the type of team. If they get in, they will make noise, and I don't need them to make noise against me. So, Steven, I'm giving you props. Okay, this is a compliment. Yes, I don't want no part of Dallas. That's how I put it that way.
Ramos, what do you think? You agree with that sentiment? No pedigree for you, or are you eating the dog food?
I don't want part of Dallas at all. I mean, not at all. I mean, that's the one. I mean, every team in our conference and in the SFL, for that matter, is tough. But if there's one team that we cannot beat for the life of us, is Dallas. It doesn't matter how many stars we have. It doesn't matter if they have all generics. We cannot beat that team for the life of us. So yeah, Mighty or you, Andy, please knock them out because no. I don't want to see. I don't want to see them in the playoffs. I don't want to see. I don't want to see Dallas at Mexico City playoffs. No, I don't want to see. So please, Andy, beat him.
Well, I beat him. I got my one win over Dallas. There's nothing else I can do. Beat him again. All right, I'll drive down to Dallas. Sham, what do you think about the way that Dallas is playing? Obviously, they got the pedigree, as we were talking about, to make a playoff run. Can they make it in the dance, though?
I think so. I think that some things have to change, and some teams have to win in order for them to make it. But I think they're a great team, as always. You can't knock out Steven for anything. Like Ramos and Mighty were saying, that he's a dangerous coach, so you can't count him out for nothing. I think one thing that San Antonio didn't do that I would like to have seen them do is run the ball a little bit more with German. I think he's one of their key elements to their offense, and since they have a running back and a fullback and was not utilized, I think that was a mistake. But, ultimately they put up points, and unfortunately they didn't get the job done against Dallas, and Dallas improves. And, it's gonna be tough in that Western Conference to keep Dallas out of that playoff bracket.
No doubt there. And Greg, man, I'm telling y'all, he's going to come back next year with a vengeance with the way that he's been so close in so many of these games and just can't get the job done. Mahmoud, what did you think about the way that this one panned out and how Dallas is looking heading forward?
Well, Dallas, like Mighty said, they were one win away from a championship trophy. So you can't count them out because who knows? They might end up being the most dangerous team in the playoff this year, beating teams that they were not expected to. They had a good game against San Antonio. Their defense played great. Their offense played all right, up to the expectations. But Dallas is known for a tough team. Like, it's not a team to mess around with, and you actually have to play hard against them. Otherwise, they'll tear you down.
No doubt there. Let's keep it moving back to the Eastern Conference. Baltimore was in Tallahassee to take on the Pride and could not get the job done. 38-41, another incredibly close game. Tallahassee over 500 yards of offense. Matt South, 17 completions on 26 attempts for 2 touchdowns and a pick. On the other side of the ball, Christensen, 40 attempts, 28 completions, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. J. Calvin Kim, 171 yards and 3 touchdowns. Robinson, 147 yards and 2 touchdowns. This game, Tallahassee has clinched their playoff spot. Baltimore's still trying to fight for one of those final 2 remaining spots. I'm sure Shan, who is also fighting for one of those remaining spots, would prefer if Baltimore didn't get it. But I think this game goes a long way to show that, they have that talent that deserves to be up against teams like Tallahassee who are playoff teams. Mighty, would you agree?
I agree. I got a couple of tidbits about this game because I kind of got to watch it. This is the second time that they've played this season, and both games kind of developed the same way. Tallahassee slowly built up a big lead, and then Baltimore came all the way back to tie the game, and Tallahassee just ekes out the field goal to kind of steal the game back. In saying that, what is up with Baltimore's defense? Like Baltimore, their one staple, coming into this season is that you could rely on them defensively. The defense would find a way to keep them in the game until the offense kind of got traction and then steal a win, and then make their way into the playoffs. Well, the last 2 seasons, that has not been the case, and I guess that's why they made that move this week. I don't know if most of the SFL Nation noticed. Old wily veteran Eddie Two Scoops Gage is the interim defensive coordinator over there in Baltimore. So I can't wait what he brings to the table, and hopefully Ramos and I kind of got roots in Baltimore because that's what kind of gave us our starts as we're both defensive coordinators over there. So hopefully that Baltimore can get back to the defensive ways that we know they can be. And, hopefully, Eddie is the answer they require. Because offensively, they can put up numbers. They can move the ball. On defense, can they stop anybody? And then for Tallahassee, I mean, JCK, Christensen, Cochran, they do what they do. And that's right. They're right there in the thick of things, trying to get to the playoffs and hopefully get some revenge on, Queen City that knocked them out last season, to get for a chance at a title belt, at the trophy. So Tallahassee just, keep on trucking after this and, try to get themselves ready for a postseason run. So that's what I got about this game, this matchup here.
Ramos, what do you think about the way Tallahassee played and how they're going to look heading into the playoffs in the Eastern Conference?
Well, they're going to be a very strong team. And JCK, 2K, JCK, he's like Chris Carter. All he does is score touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. And speaking about a little bit of 80 Gauge, because they're going to – the Tallahassee Pride, they're going to be very, very strong in the playoffs, I think. And they might go all the way. But speaking about the Crabs, with 80 Gauge, now as the defensive consultant, or defensive coordinator, I have played against 80 Gauge in CAG, in this case, in the other league, and player versus player. And 2 things: he knows his defense, and he knows all-pro football very, very well. So I think that with 80 Gauge now in Baltimore, I think that the Crabs can really, really improve on defense. And who knows? Probably that's the last piece of the puzzle that they needed to go to the playoffs. So I'm excited to see the Baltimore Crabs in the postseason if they get in. And for the Tallahassee Pride, they're going to put points. They put points. They put 40+ in virtually every game. So they will be a very, very tough team to beat, especially if you have to go to Tallahassee to face the Pride.
Mahmoud, you have faced both these teams and you're competing with one of them to make the playoffs. What did you think about what this game says for the Eastern Conference?
Well, since Tallahassee beat Baltimore, that kind of helped us out because that pushed Baltimore a game behind us. So thankfully that gave us a little bit of breathing room. And Baltimore is a team that you cannot sleep on. Back, I believe, in week 7 or 6, you called the game between the Swarm and the Crabs. And it was a defensive fight. And if it wasn't for those 2 pick sixes near the end, who knows? It could have been a different outcome. And if Baltimore somehow does manage to squeak in the playoffs, they better be a team to watch for because they're out there for revenge.
No doubt. Shan, final thoughts about this game?
Yeah, I just think, Tallahassee let Baltimore get back into this game. And if, Tallahassee does make it to the playoffs, they are in the playoffs, they're going to have to watch out for the team that's going to be facing them because if they let a team come back like that and not have really that much of a fight, they're going to be in trouble because teams will put things together and, they'll get their offensive going. So what I see from Baltimore is they had a really good defensive game where if they would have got their offense going just a little bit more, I think they would have won the game.
Yeah, that's a very fair statement. Let's keep it moving so we can get through this and keep it as close to an hour as we can as we try to. Houston in Alaska in the cold, taking on the storm, and they could not weather the storm. 24-10, Alaska gets the victory. Pretty close in yardage, 321 for Houston, 310 yards for Alaska. Cantrell, 28 completions on 39 attempts. The 5 interceptions is kind of the circle point for you. William Choice, 19 carries, 102 yards. On the other side, Cochran, 13 of 24, 1 touchdown, only 2 picks. Ash Odom, though, 24 carries, 177 yards, and 1 touchdown to put Alaska in the playoffs. Mighty, how does it feel as the only member of the Western Conference to have your playoff spot booked and your tickets on the way?
It's good. A lot more work needs to be done, but it's very good. If I give y'all a brief story, with basically what led to this game. So as I told that, when we started the broadcast, I haven't been here the last 2 weeks. So I'm celebrating with the wife. Sunday, 4:00, game starts. We're playing San Antonio at San Antonio. I ain't get to watch a darn thing because I was with the wife. So we're shopping at the Gap. Okay, so I'm sitting here having to try on these T-shirts and shirts because the wife likes me to look good. I'm like, why I need to look good? You married me already. I don't need to look good for nobody else. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I'm trying on T-shirts, and as she's looking for more shirts, I'm sneaking glances at the phone, trying to see what's going on. And then I saw, oh my gosh, we gave up a big run. Oh my gosh, Daly's going off. And I'm like, what is going on in San Antonio? I stopped watching and we struggle. So, and then the final look I got to see at the game was when EA, old Magic Feet, Electric Aggie, Robert Merrill took a kickoff to the house to give us the lead back right before halftime. And then that's why she got back to me and gave me that frown like, what you doing? Nothing, honey. So this week coming into Houston, I'm like, we got to fix the defense. Giving up 30 a game, that's unstorm-like. That's unmighty-like. So we came into the game. We're like, we're batting down the hatches. If teams want to throw the ball deep, we're gonna make them pay. And then luckily for us, Houston kind of got away from what they do. Feeding Choice both in the running game as well as throwing them screen passes and swing routes. And they kind of got greedy, trying to throw the ball deep to DR Sim, to Corey Sims, and we were just in the right place at the right time. I believe Tony Willis had 3 of the 5 interceptions for the team, including a pick 6, which if you watch the replay was the slowest pick 6 I've ever seen in my life. I think a snail beat him to the end zone. It was awful. So that's where the mindset was coming into this game. And I'm just glad the game plan worked. And, and that's why we're in the playoffs now. But like I said, we're far from being a complete work. This work is far from being done. We're still tinkering, trying to fix Ron's interception ratio because that ain't gonna work. If we're going to playoffs, throw more picks than touchdowns, it'll be 1 and out quickly.
Speaking of which, Mighty, if you don't mind, how's Ron doing?
He's good. He's home. Matter of fact, I was watching the game with him at the hospital on Wednesday, so we got to watch it together. And then the following day, he was dismissed. So now he's home. And they told him to take it easy, stop trying to be Superman. So now we're trying to keep the doctor's orders in order, so to speak, and keeping him calm. So that's where we're at now. So he's home, he's chilling, he's in darkness as well because he ain't got no power. The transformer that kind of feeds his house blue, and FPNL and Pike and the New Jersey power services that are down here trying to help out, kind of restore power are the ones that. So he's kind of at their mercy for now, but he is home. He's no longer in the hospital. So at least that's a step. That's a step in the right direction.
Good. Always glad to hear that anyone who's having any type of medical issues or health issues, mental or physical, are able to bounce back in this league. So always good to hear that. Give him our best in case he doesn't catch the podcast. We'll keep moving down the line. Ramos, you obviously are in that battle for the top 3 spots. Alaska kind of keeping pace with Mexico City now in the Western Conference. First team to clinch, does that scare you at all?
Well, the Storm is always scary whether they clinch or not. So they are always scary. First of all, great job by yourself and Matt Wilson on the commentary. Great job, you guys. This is one game of Alaska that it was not pretty, but it was very effective. And on defense, I really like what they did against Houston. Not letting DR seam beat them deep, containing the run. I really like the game plan by Alaska in this game. Cody Cantrell, he did have like 28 completions, but he only had 204 yards, and he had 5 interceptions. So he was the safety, Drew, EJ Drew. He had 3 picks, I believe, or it was Tony Willis, I believe.
Tony Willis.
Tony Willis, you're right. I'm sorry. He had 3 interceptions, and I believe 2 of them in the end zone. That was really huge. So I really like the game plan by Alaska in this game. I did watch the game a good handful of times because we play Houston next. So they jumped on an early lead, 14-3, and they did not look back. So great win by the Storm. And we have to play the Hyenas, so hopefully we can get something similar done.
Mahmoud, what did you think about the way that this one played out and the way that it affects the playoff race as Houston now kind of has to catch back up?
Well, Alaska is a team that has a strong defensive mindset, but at the same time, their offense can beat you down. So they're equally balanced, which makes them a tough, dangerous team. And the Western Conference, thank God the Swarm are not in it, because there's like 5, 6 teams battling for a playoff spot, where it's only 3 of us in the East. So they're gonna have a tough time fighting for the last 3 spots. Houston, don't get me wrong, is a good team, but Alaska, I believe, was tougher, which gave them the win, as their defense is pretty tough. Tony Willis had a hat trick of interceptions. I believe one came in the end zone and another one was in the red zone. Crucial picks. Their offense produced wonderfully. Ash Odom, Ron Cochran, Optimus Klein, they all were on harmony, which led them to get the win.
And Tony Willis having the great game. That's your buddy there, man.
Yeah, man. He had a great game. I'm proud of him. I think that Houston to me is not really out of it. I think they just just couldn't get things going. Congratulations, Mighty. Heck of a win there. And I didn't really get to watch a lot of this game, but I think if I had to be Houston, I would have gotten Choice a little bit more involved. He only had 19 carries for 102 yards. Didn't even have a rushing touchdown. So I think, to me, I always like to see the Rock. I want to see the Rock ran, and it just if you leave it in the hands of just one person and not spread the love out, that's how you lose games sometimes. So I think if Houston gets all of the players involved, I think they'll have a better shot at winning some games.
Okay, we're getting close on time, but we're going to talk about next week a little bit, and then we'll touch on the playoffs as well. So next week's scheduled tomorrow, Sunday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central. Vancouver is in San Antonio with DeMond on the call. Vancouver will clinch a playoff spot with a win. San Antonio obviously out trying to play spoiler. Monday, 8 Central, Queen City is in Chicago to take on the Wildcats with me and Matt Wilson on YouTube. Chicago clinches a playoff spot with that win. Queen City can clinch home field advantage throughout the playoffs with a win. Alaska at Sioux Falls is on at the same time with Curtis on the call on YouTube. And also at the same time, Tallahassee is at the St. Louis Gladiators with either Eric on the call or it is on Rabbit with no call, depending on his power situation, as he was affected by the hurricane as well. Tuesday at 7 Eastern, 6 Central, Carolina is at Atlanta with Colin and his dad on the call on YouTube. Atlanta clinches a playoff berth for them and Chicago with a win. And then Cleveland at Baltimore. This one has Joester09 on the call on Rabbit trying out. He is a newcomer in the play-by-play, but he actually has done play-by-play for baseball and was really good at it. So we're going to give him a go. It says needs win and Atlanta loss to stay alive. I assume they're talking about Baltimore since Cleveland has been eliminated. So Baltimore needs a win and an Atlanta loss. And then on Tuesday, game of the week, Mexico City at Houston, as those two teams will battle for a playoff spot. The winner will clinch. And then Dallas at Oklahoma City with Mike and James on YouTube. The loser is eliminated. Both could be eliminated if Vancouver and Houston get wins prior to that. That's 7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern on Tuesday. Last thing we're going to do, I want you guys not only to touch on which matchup is most exciting, but out of the teams that have not clinched a playoff spot, so we're talking Mexico City, Houston, Vancouver, Dallas, Sioux Falls, Oklahoma City, Chicago, Atlanta, Baltimore. I want one team that is a lock to make the playoffs, and I want one team that is going to miss out. I'll go first since I kind of had it in my head and I kind of sprung it on you guys at the last minute. I think the game that interests me most coming into the week is Chicago and Queen City. This one is kind of huge because Chicago, would like the win at home against Queen City, who's 8-1. Queen City is on that huge run of wins in a row, so they're going to try and keep that moving. And I'm sure that Eric would like the playoff home field advantage. So I think that's the biggest matchup. However, when I talk about my lock, I'm going to say Chicago is a lock to make the playoffs in the East. And I think, in my opinion, Oklahoma City will miss out on the playoffs this year. We will just head down the line. Mighty, if you don't mind going next, give us a lock for the playoffs, a team that'll miss, as well as which matchup you're going to watch this week.
Well, I believe Queen City's a lock to make the play. No, I'm sorry.
Only out of the teams that haven't made it. You got to listen to all the instructions before you fill out the assignment.
Okay, before I get to my lock, the game I'm keeping my eye on this week is Baltimore and Cleveland. I want to see what Two Scoops brings to the table as a defense coordinator. And, listen, what if I told you got hired for a job, right? And then you got to stop one of the most explosive teams in the league. Well, guess what? That's his job. His job is to stop Prince Escobar from getting 200 yards receiving by halftime like he did last time they played Baltimore. This is easy. Stop John Woo from keep shooting, even though he got two guns. So that's what I'm keeping my eye on this week. As for playoff lock, I'm gonna say the Swarm. The birthday boy. Yeah, Cheesy. I'm talking to you. I believe the Swarms are locked to get it in. They're just, like I said, the two games they've had with Queen City have been both nail biters, where in the end it was just Atlanta gaffes that caused them not to have a chance to steal it in extra time. And for the team that's gonna miss out, wow. Believe it or not, I'm gonna say Baltimore. I don't think Baltimore, that'll be 2 straight years that they missed the playoffs. And I'm going to say Baltimore is the team that won't make it.
Wow. All right. We'll swing it to Ramos. A lock, a team to miss, and which matchup you're going to watch. Obviously, the lock and the miss are only teams that have not made the playoffs. I thought that was clear, but Mighty told me otherwise.
The matchup I will be looking forward to, obviously, every matchup is intriguing, but because of the division, the conference that I'm in, I'm looking forward to Dallas and Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is one of those teams. They present sometimes matchup problems for the Roughnecks. It's one of those cases. Maybe how the Seattle Seahawks struggle against the Rams, the Denver Broncos struggle against the Chargers. The Tennessee Titans, they struggle against the Jaguars. It's one of those things. So I will be looking forward to Dallas and Oklahoma City, team that will go to the playoffs. The Vancouver Legion, in my opinion, they have just too, they are just too powerful right now. They are on a roll. So I think the Vancouver Legion are locked to make the playoffs, and a team that will miss out. This one is really, really tough. I don't want to sound biased and say Houston because I think we're going to beat them. But I will say the Crabs. I will agree with Mighty. I think that the Cleveland Stallions offense is really, really powerful. I think that the Baltimore Crabs can score against that defense. It's going to be one 48-45 game. But I think that the Crabs at the end will miss out. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, fair. We'll swing it to you, Mahmood. A team to lock, a team to miss, and which matchup you're looking for the most this week. He's muted. Let's see if he can get unmuted or if he's listening, paying attention.
Okay,
there we go.
Sorry about that.
It happens.
The matchup I'm looking forward to, Queen City and at Chicago, only because that can affect us too. Because if Queen City wins and we happen to play them, we're going to have to head to Queen City, which is pretty tough as is. So, and Chicago will be relying on us to help them get in for the final spot. So that's a matchup I'll be paying attention to. And a lock in the playoff, I have to give it to Vancouver. Vancouver is too hot right now to be stopped, so I don't think they can be stopped right now.
It's the first time I've ever been called too hot in my life.
They're heading to San Antonio, who's struggling, so I don't think they can bring them down. And a team to miss, I'm going to have to go with Oklahoma City because I don't think they'll be able to take down Dallas. Dallas is too tough of a team, and Oklahoma City won't be able to slow them down.
Okay. All right, Shan, finish us out here.
All right, man. Well, I think obviously I'm going to watch the Chicago game. I think the person that's going to be in the playoffs is going to be Atlanta, and the person who's going to miss is going to be Baltimore. I'm going to have to agree with Mighty.
All right, fair enough. With that said, does anyone else have anything for the good of the order before we get off here?
No, just everybody enjoy the games. Enjoy it, people. We are getting close to the playoffs, so everybody enjoy the games. We're going to have a good slate of games this week, so I cannot wait.
All right, another good week of SFL action, another good week of the podcast. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully by that point, we'll be able to start talking about some playoff matchups.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me, everyone here on the cast and everyone in the chat. Thank you for watching as well, and we will see you guys next week. Peace.
Good night.
See ya.
Good night.